yeah, it's not the way. Anyway, but luckily she's not here right now, so I can say whatever I want. But, and you have to believe me, because, yeah. But in the early stages of our marriage, I mean, all of these nice things happened, and, love was practical. And love was practical into the sense of, you can see it everywhere, all around us. All the small little things. My love language is acts of service. I would love it if, she did something in the house. For her, it's physical touch. So a hug really made her day. And you went out of your way to do that. But one day, I didn't realize this, okay? But one day my wife came to me and she said, maybe you know the statement, I'm saying this from a place of love. But I need you to know, I'm saying this from love. You smell. Like, what? She says, I think we need to buy you different deodorant. I'm like, what? From a place of love, sure. And immediately in my mind, I was like, I've got this whole arsenal of things that I can say back to her. I'm not going to mention it now, but you've got all these things that you can say back to her, but she said it from a place of love. So it's not wrong. I was like, We're still in that period. No, we're clearly out of the honeymoon phase. But I got to a point where she said, no, I'm saying this from love. Now we're in our 4th year of marriage, and I'm at a point now where every single day, I wake up, I go and shower, and I put on roll-on, I put on spray, and she's like, you don't have to do it that much. I'm like, yes, I do. Because I'm thinking back, all I can remember is you smell. But it was said from love, because it changed my life. It changed the way that I'm doing things. Because obviously, I can't smell myself. I'm not going to go and ruik ek lekker. No, I'm going to go on what she tells me, because I know that she loves me. And I know that she will point out certain things to me in my life. And the reality of why I'm telling you this story is, I think on a subconscious level, we all have this massive desire for love to be shown practically. For love to be shown, and not just love to be theorized. Love is not just supposed to be a nice little theory, something that we read about in the Bible, something that we, I want to say, over-exaggerate about on Valentine's Day. And when you're married, you say, I love you, and then one day when you're dead, we'll say, I still love you. It's not that. Love is supposed to be something that is practical in our lives. However, we find ourselves in a place and a position in life where we equate love with the simple fact of what you do, I will do. So if you love me, I will love you back. If I go and I take Willie out for a coffee, I expect him to take me out for a coffee. Otherwise, I won't take him out for another coffee. If I take my wife out on a date, I'm like, I paid for the previous one, so I expect you to pay for this one, otherwise no more dates. It doesn't work that way. It's like we've got this karma mentality that do this and that will happen to you. You have to do this or bad things will happen to you. And we start equating the concept of love, we start equating that to not just a theory, but we need to make it a way of living. We need to make it the way that we live our lives, because we live in a life where it's easy to say, okay, well, what goes up must come down, obviously. If I punch you, you're going to punch me back. No, turn the other cheek, but then you've only got 2 cheeks, so after the 3rd shot, no, never mind. But you get to a place where we have to say, listen, love has to be practical. And I want to read you just this quick scripture. It's not on the screen. I just want to remind you of this. In 1 John 4, verse 7 to 9, it says the following. Beloved, let us love one another, for love is from... There we go, thank you, Sam. Because love is from God. Love is God. God is love. God isn't just the one that says he loves us. He is the example of what love is. For love is from God, and whoever loves has been born of God and knows God. Anyone who does not love does not know God, because God is love. And that is a major, major scripture that we read, or that we have. Because the moment that we start taking a look at the concept of love and the definition of love, we can live from a place of love is all about things that I have to do in life in order to achieve love, in the sense of what does the Old Testament, what does the law require of me to make sure that all the boxes are ticked? Was I nice enough with my colleagues this week? Great. Checkbox. Love. Was I in a good mood today when I woke up to my wife or my husband or to whoever's around me? Yes. Great. Fantastic. Did I not lose my cool on the road? No. Oh, well, then you don't get love. That's not what it's about. It's not about doing this so that I can get that. When we take a look at love, we start asking ourselves, what is love empowering me to do? Probably one of the craziest, or no, not the craziest, but for me it was very cool. My best friend stays in Switzerland. Okay, we grew up together here. He moved to Switzerland 2016, I think. He met his wife here in South Africa. They moved there. They got married there. Now they're still there. And when I was over there for their wedding, it was fantastic. Listen, but it was cold. But it was so great because we went on this trip throughout Switzerland about 2 or 3 days before they got married. And we stopped at the shop. Now, I know it's probably a cliche because we're in Switzerland and, it can be a cliche. But for me, I really wanted to buy something in Switzerland that I can use when I get back home. Chocolates are not going to work. Like, that would be finished before we even get on the plane, okay? Cheese, everything will frot, okay? But they eat a lot of cheese, guys. Yo. But he bought me this, my friend now. He bought me a Swiss Army knife, okay? Now, I know it's not a Leatherman or it's not something to that extent, but he bought me this Swiss Army knife, okay? It's a multi-tool, if you don't know what that is. It's got its knife, it's got the bottle opener, it's got, I don't know what this is. Also, it's a small little knife. It's got the corkscrew. I never use this. That's a lie. It's got this small little thing. I have no idea what this is even. It's got the toothpick that is disgusting if you use the toothpick. I don't know why, but it's just, yeah. And it's got the tweezers. It's got everything that you need in this small little tool. Why am I sharing this with you? Because the moment that I got this, I started realizing that this is more than just a little knife to use or to carry around with me. This past week, I got reminded of the purpose of this knife. I got reminded of what the purpose is of this knife. It's not just to be a paperweight. It's not just to use it and, please don't do this, but it's not just to use to stab someone or cut someone or to attack your dog if they're not listening to you, or your husband or your wife. That's not the purpose of it. But this Swiss Army knife in itself, its purpose is to be used as a tool. Its purpose is to be used to empower you to fix certain things, cut certain things, open certain things. The purpose behind this knife can sometimes get confused and be misused. Many times we do that with love as well. We don't always understand what the purpose is of love, and therefore we misuse the idea of love. Or we allow it to be misused on us as well. Because when we take a look within Scripture, we start seeing that there is a different motivation when it comes to love. When we take a look at Scripture, we start seeing that love is not something that is manipulative. Love is something that doesn't manipulate. Love is something that is patient. It's not impatient. Love is something that will empower you to reach more people around you. But also, love is something, when lived correctly, that doesn't make you think of only yourself. Love is more than that. Because if I wanted to be selfish, because love takes me from a place of being selfish to selfless. Love takes me from a place from being unforgiving to forgiving. When I start using love for its purpose, we start seeing a side of God. We start seeing the heart of God. We start living in the heart of God. And that's something that we need to always remind ourselves about. But, when we take a look within Scripture, I'm going to read you this in 1 John 4, verse 7 to 9. I think I skipped past it. No, I already read it. But 1 John 4, verse 7 to 9, here it is again. I want to read you the final part of that scripture that I left out earlier. It says here, because God is love, in this, the love of God was made manifest among us, that God sent his only Son into the world so that we might live through him. When we take a look at the concept of love, we need to realize that there is a concept that is being given to us. There's a mentality that's being given to us that is a worldly mentality. Okay, once again, it's all about the law. It's all about doing the right things. It's basically, if you want to test this, ask yourself the following. Do I feel more guilt about mistreating my coworker than I do about not, or do I feel more guilt about not coming to church than mistreating my coworker? Do I feel more guilt when for example, when I mistreat a guy or a person on the road because they're driving recklessly and so bad than what I did for not just reading my Bible or praying today? Do I start pushing the boundary on saying, how far can I push this idea of sin before it becomes actual sin? Just to push that boundary a bit. Do I start taking myself into a place where I'm saying, listen, yes, I need to get things, everything needs to be done perfectly so that I can get right with God. It's a mentality of the world where we start telling ourselves, listen, love is not just about doing certain things. It's about being a certain person. And what I mean by that is to say, like the scripture said, God needs to work through us. Because the moment that happens, we start living by faith. One of the biggest things that we see in life is that people get heartbroken because someone didn't love them back. They put everything into it, and there was no love that was returned. There was love was put out into the world, if I could put it that way. Love was shown, love was given, but now I expect you to love me back. Now I don't get it back. Now I'm pushing love aside because it clearly doesn't work. That is not love. It's maybe an expression of something. But we know here, we read in Galatians 5 verse 6, we read, what is important is faith expressing itself in love. When we take a look at this, when we take a look at what love is all about, let's make it practical in our own lives for a moment. When I say, God, I'm allowing you to work through me to show love practically to a world out there that so desperately needs it. There is an element of faith in that sentence, in that moment to say, Father, I trust you that you will show me the right people. I trust you that I will be patient. I trust you that I will be kind. I'm putting my faith in you that I don't do this out of myself. Maybe another story. And I'll be very honest this morning. So I wouldn't say that I've got a problem with patience. I wouldn't say that I don't have that, okay? But yesterday, I played golf with some friends. And I like golf. I've played golf for a few years now, and I really enjoy it. But yesterday, God tested my patience on the golf course a lot. And I got to a point where on the course, I don't know what it was, but I got to a point where one of my friends told me on the course, listen, I think you need to get your personality back. And I said, I'm like, Askies, is it just because I'm beating you or what's the problem? But he says, no, I think you need to get your personality back because that isn't you who you are busy, how you're busy playing or who you are. Because the moment that when something happens in my own life that I'm struggling with, I can get very impatient with that cause or with that story. Is that love in action? No. Because when we read 1 Corinthians 13, we start seeing, and Billy mentioned it to us in the week as well, but it's this typical marriage sermon. But when I read 1 Corinthians 13, it gets us to a place where it says that love is patient and kind. Was I patient and kind to myself perhaps yesterday? No. To others, Not really. Up until a point where someone said to me, that is not who you are. And I realized in that moment, when I said, God, work through me, I had faith that He will work through me, but also He will work through others to me. When we take a look at what love truly, truly is, we start seeing that it's more than just saying, listen, I'm going to pray for you. It's more than just saying, I'm going to read my scripture, I'm going to share a word with you. But love is in its essence how we bring God's culture to a broken world. Let me just re-say that, or just say that again. Love is bringing God's kingdom, His culture, into a world that is broken. Do you hear that? Love isn't just being a nice guy or a nice girl. Love means you are entering a room because you're carrying the confidence of Christ into that room. You've been through the valley of the shadow of death. You've been on the hilltops. You've been through it all. You've experienced God's love as well. And you're taking that into a new place and you're establishing that culture in that place to show love. When we take a look at love in itself, I want to read just this scripture that's on here now. Love is patient and kind. Love is not jealous or boastful or proud or rude. If you ever want to determine if you ever want to ask yourself, am I busy living out love? Ask yourself, is what I'm about to do, does it bring forth patience? Does it bring forth kindness? Does it bring forth jealousy? Does it bring forth boastfulness or pride or arrogance or being rude to that person? When you are perhaps in a situation and someone acts towards you, is that from a place of rudeness, of boastfulness, of pride? Because love is so much more than that. Love does not demand its own way. It is not irritable, and it keeps no record of being wronged. Remember earlier I told you when my wife told me that I stink? I had in my back of my mind, I had like this ledger of things I can say back to her. Luckily I didn't, otherwise I wouldn't be married anymore. But it's a thing of, we don't keep record of what was done wrong. The moment that you and I are able to let go and live a life of freedom, a life of forgiveness, we start living through love. When someone has hurt me, I'm not going to go out of my way to hurt them back. I will pray for them, but also I will set them free. I will not hang on to what was done. Why? Because I have faith that God's love will work through me and into that person's heart. It does not rejoice about injustices, but rejoices whenever the truth wins out. Love never gives up. It never loses faith. It's always hopeful and endures through every circumstance. I want to just quickly stop at that. When we take a look at love, just quickly ask yourself, and you don't need to answer this publicly, but answer it in yourself. Really? Can you bring me some water, please? But when you, when you ask yourself, am I busy living my life? Whenever I'm at a place in my life, I just want to read this to you again. Love never gives up. Have you ever wanted to give up on someone? I know I have. I was like, I cannot deal with this person anymore. I don't understand. Like, it's only God that can love you. Really, it's only God that can set you free, but I am done with you. And I'll be the first to admit it. Because we get to a place where we start saying that I'm busy losing faith in that person, in this country, in my business, in my children, in my mother, in my father, in whoever. And I start telling myself that I'm about to give up. Ad break. Thanks, DK. It was DK, ne? Yeah, obviously. Okay. Thank you. But love in itself, the moment that I start saying, I cannot do this anymore, I want to ask you, were you busy doing it from yourself or busy doing it in the way of love through God? I want to ask you that straight up today. Because the moment that I start telling myself, I am done showing love to that person, we need to ask ourselves, is it love? Or is it just me wanting to feel better about my life? Someone once said in a sermon before, I can still love you, but I don't need to like you. My wife said it to me once as well. It was very interesting. But there's a reality in that to say that even we don't agree right now on something, but I'm still going to love you. Why? Because God tells me I need to love others as He has loved me. That is His new commandment. Something we've been focusing on this whole series. Paul goes on in Corinthians, but just in chapter 12 and in chapter 14, we start seeing in chapter 12, he speaks on the gifts of the Spirit. And he starts highlighting all of these gifts, and he starts showing these gifts, and he starts saying, okay, but this is what the gifts are all about. And in chapter 14, he starts speaking on the order within church meetings. But in the middle, he speaks on, in chapter 13, he speaks on loving extravagantly. And he ends off that chapter in chapter 13, verse 13, he says, 3 things will last forever: faith, hope, and love. And the greatest of this is love. And he says, you can have all the gifts. You can have all the order you want. You can do all the right things. But if the thing that doesn't stay behind isn't love, you're missing the point. Our lives need to be led from a place of love, a place of forgiveness. Our lives need to show that. My life needs to show that. It needs to show patience. When it comes to being impatient, I can tell you now that is probably the one thing that most of us here pray for. God, just give me patience to deal with this country right now with load shedding. God, just give me patience right now so that I can just deal with whatever the wrongs are in this world. And we say, Father, just give me patience. It's not necessarily going to happen like that. Ooh, patience. Such a patient person. Wow. It's not just going to happen like that. I want to go back to what Galatians said earlier. Do I have faith that God's love can change the world? Do I have faith that love can be the answer? Because here's the thing. If we want to see patience in the world, we need to show patience. If we want to see how there is kindness, we need to show kindness. If we want to see how there is no self-seeking in this world, we need to be self-sacrificing. But it has to come from a place of God saying, I'm going to empower you to do this. Even if that means that sometimes I don't get my way, but it has to be God's way through me. It has to be God using me in that space. Because love always trusts, it always hopes, but also love always perseveres, always. The final thing is, when we take a look just at how we can make God visible through love in our lives, we need to live in a different culture. We see within Scripture as well, Jesus came into this space and he taught his disciples the same thing. He says, you are not going to act like the Pharisees and the Sadducees. You're not going to do all the things that they are doing. You need to now live in an opposite spirit, in a different culture, in a different way of living. We need to start living from a place of saying, yes, I got this Swiss Army knife. Everything is in here. I can use it for everything, but But if I don't live this from a place of saying, I'm going to use this for its intended purpose, it's just going to bring harm. Or it's just going to lie there somewhere in the corner gathering dust. If I don't use this for what it's worth, if I don't say, listen, a whole world might be using this to inflict damage upon someone else or to hurt someone else. If I don't start living from a place of saying that is not the purpose, The purpose is patience, kindness, forgiveness, setting people free. Then we're never going to see a world change. We have to start living for the person sitting next to us, the person in front of us, the person behind us, and start living from a place that is about one another, not just about myself. That is when we start changing life, the way that we live life. I'm going to end off with this scripture, and Beatrix, you guys can come forward. 1 John 4, verse 12 and 20 and 21 as well. He says, no one has seen God at any time. If we love one another, God abides in us. God lives in us. And his love has been perfected in us. If someone says, I love God and hates his brother, he is a liar. That is difficult. For he who does not love his brother whom he has seen, how can he love God whom he has not seen? Once again, faith. It's all about faith. And this commandment we have from him, that he who loves God must love his brother also. I want to touch on what I said earlier as well. We live in a society that is broken. We live in a world that is broken. We do. Let's just face the facts. However, not everything in society is broken. Not everything needs to stay broken. And we as the church need to start living in a one another culture by saying, I'm going to act in the opposite spirit than what the world is acting on, than what the world is reacting on. Let's use probably the most prominent example. Take our government. Take out the leadership of our country. Take our municipality. Just take our leadership. What are the words that we are speaking over them? Are we praying for our leadership? Are we praying that there will be an opposite spirit being led? Are we praying that the people who are in that leadership role will start living for one another and not just for themselves? Are we praying that we will start seeing hope in a world that is hopeless? Are we declaring forgiveness over a situation that needs forgiveness? Or are we allowing bitterness to take root in our lives? Are we allowing hatred to fill our hearts? Are we allowing the enemy to come and take us off the path and say, listen, you've got love, you've got the example of it, but let's just use it for something different. Let's use it for selfish gains. Because that is not who we are as the church. That is not who we are supposed to be. This morning we want to make it practical. This morning we want to ask you that you'll take 2 or 3 people close to you, if you're comfortable with that. And I want to ask you that this morning, that I've just put on 3 points that we can pray for today. I want to ask you that you will go with the people around you for a moment. Pray for our government. Pray for our country. Pray for our leadership. Pray that love will become visible and actionable. Because at the end of the day, we need to realize that our DNA of who we are is love. We were created from a place of love. When God thought of you, He thought of every single detail, and that requires something of love. It requires something that we need to go and strive towards as well. So I want to ask you, find some people close to you. If you want to stand, you're welcome to stand as well. But take some time now and just pray for our country. After that, we're just going to pray as well, just end off with a prayer, but also carry on with one more song of worship. I want to invite you to stand with us as we just take some time to pray.
Your love was the spark that would set my spirit alive. Your love was the anchor from heaven, do not just survive. Your love was the compass at sea when stars moved aside. Your love chased me down and it found me when I tried to hide. And oh, the wonder of your love pouring out on us. Jesus, you have made me whole. Your love let the crown of creation stand in the light. Your love shoved the darkness aside. Your love made it bright. Your love made a way so the slave would rule as a king. All evil was brought to its knees of what your love would bring. And oh, the wonder of your love pouring out on us. Jesus, you have made me whole. And oh, how precious is your love pouring out on us. Jesus, you have done it all. Cried out, it is finished. It is done. It's paid in full. You became sin, so that we might become the righteousness of God. You lifted me up. Your love chased me down. Your love took my shame and turned me around. You lifted me up. Your love chased me down.